and welcome back to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Kind of an interesting show today. Governor DeSantis states his case responding to President Biden. Jeopardy is now in negotiations with Mike Richards. Might not be the Mike Richards that you're thinking of. And then also a mistaken identity story and kind of where are we heading as far as like identity and protecting yourself and keeping yourself safe. But before all of that, most important question, you're only proving my point from yesterday. Like you make reading look painful. There is no, like when you are reading something, there is no joy. No, it is like you look like you are about to walk the plank.
This is a true story. I really don't like to read. When sports, see, you're too young to even remember magazines, but when Sports Illustrated used to come when I was a kid, when I would go to an article and I would see an article I would read, I would look how long it was before I started it because I needed to know if this was worth my investment. Clickbait is a perfect length for me. I need snack size information. And so yeah, let's go. But if we're doing Hawaii first, this is the most fascinating, mind-numbing thing we'll talk about all month.
Let's talk about it first. So you actually sent me the story. I just had a chance to read it about a mistaken identity that kept a man locked away for almost 2 years of his life in Hawaii.
He was homeless. He's found on the street, which sleeping on the street is a crime, apparently. And so the officers arrest him and tell him that he's some other dude who's wanted on drug charges. And he's like, no, that's not me. He gave his name, he gave his social security number, and for over 2 years, apparently, he went from prison to a mental institution, and he kept telling these people, that's not me. So these people kept, when you have someone who you think is in a mental institution who keeps claiming they're someone else, what they do, they kept drugging him because he was delusional and uncooperative or whatever the term would be. So when you read through this, the details are incredible because the public defenders never checked his social security number. The public defenders had defended like a decade ago the guy they were really looking for. So they had his information on record. And according to these people, they didn't even look alike. So if they would have pulled up a picture of this other guy, everywhere through the chain, he knew his own social security number. And he claimed that at the time of this crime, he's like, I was being treated in a mental institution 150 miles away. So obviously this guy did have issues. He was homeless and he'd been treated mental. But right. He said at the time of the crime that you're saying I committed, I was being treated in a mental institution on another Hawaiian island. They didn't look into that.
Right.
And what makes it even more mind-numbing is the guy they accused him of being has been incarcerated in Alaska the whole time. So if
what are the odds that it would be?
That,
what are the odds it would be Alaska?
I think it was Alaska. I just read that, but then I was interrupted by someone making fun of my reading.
No, but anyway. The irony of like one person locked away in Hawaii because the other one's incarcerated in Alaska is crazy. It's just,
through the whole process, they were like, they fingerprinted him too. They fingerprinted him. So how did did you not run him? Did you not look? But this whole time that this guy, and I believe me, I've never been a police officer. I've never dealt with people who had mental illnesses, who were delusional, or whatever those cases may be, whether I'm on the law enforcement side, in the incarceration side, in the hospitalization side, never dealt with it. But if this guy keeps telling you over and over and over that this is my name and this is my social security number, at some point, someone would run this. And I cannot believe that this is not going to, I think the guy's about 50. And yes, he lost a couple years of his life. But considering he was homeless, this is like, it's almost like he did his own form of college, and he is going to come out and he is going to be well compensated because this was a disaster all over the place.
So just some like side topics. First of all, I don't know if it's a crime. I don't know the exact rules or the exact laws, but homelessness in Hawaii is such a problem that they do have like much stricter, like stringent laws in Hawaii for homelessness.
I know. Have you ever been? Hawaii's expensive as all get out.
Yes. And so here's what happens is people like, it's warm, it's beautiful. So like people work up enough money to get a plane ticket to Hawaii, and then they get on the island and then they can't get off of it. So
because
Hawaii,
they can't afford a $17 taco every day.
Correct. And then they can't afford a plane ticket off of the island. So like Hawaii does have like a unique homelessness situation that I do know there are rules and laws in the state that are different than the other like inland 48. Like they are much more stringent. So it does not surprise me that this happened in Hawaii. This is
and just to interrupt you, I worked a baseball camp in Hawaii once. Have you ever been to Hawaii?
I've never personally been to Hawaii.
You know what they don't like in Hawaii?
Inlanders?
Yes, people who aren't from Hawaii. So I'm guessing that I think I saw the dude. The dude looks very normal Caucasian. If that was him, in one of the articles I saw a picture of somebody. If that's him, yes, he's a very typical white guy. What was the word for it? They had a word for it because we're there with Hawaiian people while we're working the camp, and they told us, generally speaking, you people come here and mess up our state is what they said.
Because they end up taking a lot of the homelessness. This is the other part of it too. When you talk about like fears or like what people are afraid of, like there's the obvious ones, like people are afraid of spiders, people are afraid of ghosts, there's all these things that are in like the realm of fear. I personally have always been terrified of like being mistaken for a crime or being like mistaken for an identity. Like this is one of my biggest fears ever. Like
I thought your fears were like crashing into a lake and you can't. That's my
reoccurring nightmare when I was like going through college and stuff. Yes, okay. But like I think this is like one of the more underrated fears. Like the idea of being accused of something you didn't do, or of being accused of somebody that you are not, and just no one will listen to you. Like nobody will listen to you.
Well, that's what. Like, he had no ID on him. He's a homeless guy. He has no ID. And if you're telling people this and no one listens to you, like what else can you do? They fingerprinted you. They ran them. They probably ran them, didn't check them, didn't run them. Like, it's incredible to me that no one. Oh, it's like the Cleveland. I want to call them the Renegades. What's the Defenders? What's their name? The Avengers. What the Cleveland
Avengers? Oh, the Guardians.
The Guardians. Yeah, I knew it was one of those. It's like that nobody along the line ran a Google search. Sure. Or, well, you think they might have. But anyway, there's a possibility that nobody along the line was one day at lunch going, this guy that we keep telling his name's like Castleberry? Because I think that was it. I don't have the article up. Yeah. Maybe just for poops and grins, let's run what he says. And let's see what the story is. Let's type in that social security number because he keeps giving us the same one. Right. So either they're his lottery numbers that he's been playing since he was a kid, or maybe this really is his social security number. You would just think one person along the line would have taken a little bit of effort.
So an underrated fear factor there, like if you ranked fear, like that one for me is higher up than most people. The other part of this too, I have been convinced, and maybe I have been told this wrongly. I have always been convinced that your social security number is like, it is like gold. And what I mean by that is like, it is the one thing that can allow you to separate yourself. And again, I'm not naive. I'm not saying people can't find your social security number. I'm not saying there aren't like hackers and people can't get a hold of stuff like that. But I've always believed that it is like the one thing unique to you that if you're able to prove that it is your social security number, it will help you out. And that for this man is the one, like that is the thing that would drive me nuts. It's not like the mistaken identity. It's not the name or who are you, all this stuff. If he's telling you your social security number and just no one's verifying it, I would go insane. I would lose my mind that no one would check my social security.
Well, now I'm thinking while you're talking, I was just thinking, how far along the way were people like, maybe we should check this, but if we do and we're wrong, and he's been right all along, we're going to look bad. So let's not do it today.
Yeah, no, it's very, very possible.
We should I don't know. What do you think? Give me right up most underrated fears. Because I know, like, just think, you said spiders. Like, that's not a real, people don't like spiders, but they're little bitty. A spider's not going to, bite your arm off and carry you away.
No.
I know one of the other, you just talked about recurring dreams, people being naked in public. But that is like an embarrassment. That's not like that's not a danger. Like, oh my God, I'm going to be dead.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think the most common one that people don't talk about, like the most underrated one, is being liked. Like, people's fear of not being liked or not being accepted. And it's a very, it's a fair fear. Like, I'm not putting it down. Like, it's a very real thing. But I think it's more inherited in people than people will ever admit. I think that may be like the most underrated fear in society. People are terrified of not being liked.
Yeah, it's funny. The movie I watched last night was an 80s classic, so you've seen it many times. Did you ever see Can't Buy Me Love?
No.
It is. You need to watch it.
Okay.
It is. It's from, McDreamy from
Sweet Home Alabama?
No, from Grey's Anatomy. Oh, was he in Sweet Home Alabama too?
Yeah, that's Sweet Home Alabama too. Go ahead.
He was a prick in Sweet Home Alabama, wasn't he?
Well, no, he's the guy who kind of gets screwed over. He's the fiance in New York who kind of gets left at the altar.
Yes. Okay. He was a break. He was a nerdy kid who wanted to be a popular kid, and what these things and how it. He ended up paying this really the Uber, like the cheerleading captain, to pretend that it was. So anyway, I watched that last night, and it's funny you mentioned that about being liked, because he paid to be liked, and it was this whole spoof on high school and popular and in crowd and not in crowd. Yeah, I agree with that, because I like to be liked. It very much bothers me when people don't like me.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of like internal stuff like that that's more shared than what anybody will ever let on to.
Yeah, and I've also thought this a lot, like people who aren't liked and pretend. I've always thought the teachers who aren't liked and kind of revel in it and pretend it's because they're really hard or they're really strict or whatever. Nobody goes into teaching so all the kids hate them. And then when they find out that they're just not good at being liked, then they pretend that they've embraced it when it's really not a natural. Like, if you hated kids and why would you ever go into teaching?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, they may not have known it. I mean, I think a lot of people they go through college, they get into what they wanted to do, and they realize it's not what they thought they were going to be doing. I think that happens all the time.
And then they get stuck?
I think teachers, I think there's a lot of teachers that go I like math, I like writing, I like history. And then they realize they're actually not getting to write. They're actually not getting to be a mathematician. They're actually not doing those things.
It's like Mr. Holland's Opus.
Yes. I think I don't know. There's a lot of internal, that would be a good one. The list of most underrated fears. Maybe we'll have to do that sometime. Jeopardy or DeSantis?
Let's go Jeopardy next, because that's kind of fun too.
Yeah, no, Jeopardy is in negotiations.
We'll save the hard hitter for the end.
Yeah, Jeopardy is in negotiations with the new permanent host, Mike Richards. I said to you, I wasn't sure who Mike Richards was. The only Michael Richards I knew, and you brought him up, was Kramer from Seinfeld. So I'm not sure who Mike Richards is. I'm assuming he was one of the people that has kind of carried the torch in the last couple of months. Okay.
And when I first saw, and I had to double check this because we just talked before, when I first saw Mike Richards, again, and Kramer goes by Michael Richards, but I knew it was close. And when I first saw that Jeopardy's in negotiations with, I could just see Kramer, and I thought, you have got to be kidding me. This is going to be awesome.
Every time he walked on stage would be great.
It would have been, and then when I read it, I was like, oh, it's just, I mean, shockingly, there's two Mike Richards in the world. But this guy's an executive producer with the show, and he hosted a couple weeks back. I think it was February, March. We do have an article about this coming up on NorthcentralPa.com because I know the person who wrote it, although it's being proofread right now just to make sure it makes the cut. But anyway, he is not a stranger to game shows. He hosted The Pyramid, and he hosted a show called Divided, I think, which on the Game Show Network. He's also been executive producer of not just Jeopardy, but like Wheel of Fortune and Let's Make a Deal and a couple of, what other things. But he is a lifer. And I guess when he hosted, I guess the executives really liked him. The problem is the audience really wants LeVar Burton, and they really, really want LeVar Burton. And so I mentioned this in the article. The conspiracy theorists around are like, well, maybe they want to just drum up publicity and then to ire the audience. And then the audience is like, no, we want LeVar Burton. And they're like, oh, okay, because it was released by Variety Magazine is the one that leaked it or has the exclusive or whatever. But they are very clear in saying that no deal has been finalized. Yeah. And so with all the famous people that were out there that had done it, and you don't want to, if they're going to do a bait and switch, you don't want to do it to a guy like Ken Jennings, who's beloved by the Jeopardy fans. You don't want to do it to someone famous like an Aaron Rodgers or Katie Couric or Sanjay Gupta or any of those people. So if it's one of your own, and he's like, yeah, we'll tell him it's me. Yeah. And then they'll be furious. Then we'll give him LeVar, and now we've just drummed up interest as the new season's about to start. There's a theory.
It's a very good. Did you come up with that theory, or did you read that somewhere?
Well, it's
a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Okay, no, that's a very, very good one. Here, this would be my kind of like positive take on Mike Richards. I think you can't replace Alex Trebek.
No.
And I think a lot of times because this is, when you talk about like TV, like we've gone through this with like the original late night shows, and we've had to replace iconic people. And now we're kind of learning how to do it with game shows. And this is going to become kind of a trend of like, how do you replace iconic people on TV? And this is really, we're still kind of like in the first go around of it, if you get my drift. Like you didn't really have to do it in the 50s, 60s, 70s because you weren't, who was there to replace yet? So
there were the Johnny Carsons, there have been a couple, but I get your point.
Yes. So as we're going through this, one of the things that I agree with the Price is Right. I love Drew Carey, but trying to replace somebody with a somebody, I think is not a good move. And so, yes, while Mike Richards has done some stuff before, he is not a household name. And I actually think that bodes very well for the show. I don't think you want to replace somebody like Alex Trebek and try to have a equal name or a bigger name come in and do what he did. You're almost better off with like and again, Mike Richards is not a nobody, but you're almost better off having someone that is not a household name come in, and you're almost like wiping the slate clean.
I mean, yes, I agree with that. The issue is this is still about audience. And it's not this, like this endowed university that's just going to go on and on forever. Like they still need audience. And almost to the point, whether you want to get however philosophical about it, Alex Trebek was beloved. And, he passed away. He was 80. I think he was 80. He was old. He'd had his good run. People knew he was sick. And so for the audience that had been with him, I think he hosted like 35 or 36 years or something. So there's still kind of a grieving process to it.
Sure.
And it's almost like.
Can I ask you this? Because you watch Jeopardy.
Yes, we watch it.
Yes. Okay, so let me ask you this. Was Jeopardy Alex's show, or was Alex Jeopardy's host?
Jeopardy was Alex's show.
Okay, so to you, that show was like 65 Alex, like 35 Jeopardy. Like that, Alex was more of the name than Jeopardy was at the point.
I mean, you don't watch it because that's one of the things. Is like he was so rarely funny. He was just I don't even know how to describe it. He was just this presence. I don't know, but it just to give the audience. There are really times in life you just give the audience what they want. And it's in a time like this, that is it's a grieving process really for people who've been watching. There have been people who've been watching Alex Trebek for 30 years. He's gone. They're sad. And I just don't understand why it would bode well for business to be like, I know you don't want this guy, but here he is. Give it time and you'll love him.
Because I think if you're a Jeopardy viewer, if you're a producer, you're somebody behind the scenes for Jeopardy, your belief is that the show is bigger than Alex. Like your belief is that at 7:00, people did not tune into the Alex Trebek show. People tune into Jeopardy. And I'm not saying which one's true. I never watched it consistently enough to really know how the audience feels. But if you are the producer, the person behind the scenes, the owner of the show, in your mind, like Jeopardy is the show, not Alex. And so who we put out in front of it is going to be fine because the show Jeopardy is going to be fine.
And I get that. And there's the same for people that watch Wheel of Fortune and then watch Jeopardy. And Pat Sajak is Wheel of Fortune, even though it's about letters and a wheel. Right. But I think the aspect is that the consistency, and he brought a comfort to fans. You turned on Jeopardy and you knew what you were going to get. And the thing that LeVar Burton has done from his vast career is he was, in the blip of Roots, which made him iconic because Roots is such an iconic, and he was Kunta Kinte, but then through his life as either on Star Trek or through Reading Rainbow, there are so many people who feel this comfort already with this guy, and and I know it's not for all, but there's a lot of America that already feels like they have this relationship with LeVar Burton where nobody has this relationship with another guy. And it's just comforting to go from Alex Trebek, who is beloved, to kind of just like to go into the arms of a comforting person as opposed to going into the arms of a stranger. And I don't think that is a good idea.
Interesting. No, that's very, very interesting. To me, it feels like the people of Jeopardy are like, this is Jeopardy.
And I agree with that. And you see
that's what it feels like
in so many aspects of life. The people that are behind it are just like, we are bigger than, it's like for all those years when the president of Penn State, like, we are bigger than Joe Paterno. And you just want to say, like, no, you're not. Nobody at the University of Alabama is bigger than Nick Saban. I don't care. The athletic director's name comes above him on certain forums, but the athletic director is not above Nick Saban. And there are times that, that the other people get lost in it. We're a great institution. We are the University of Alabama. Right now, you are Nick Saban. That's what you are. And Jeopardy was Alex Trebek. Even though, so I don't know. But that's just my opinion. What do I know?
Yeah. No, it's a good one. So we'll have to see what happens. I'm curious now to see if they do the bait and switch on you. That's a very good theory. I had not thought of that. To wrap up the show today, Governor DeSantis states his case responding to President Biden. Did you finally get a chance to
I watched one of the clips. And I thought it was fascinating. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Take first take, because I'm curious. We didn't get a chance to talk about this, so everybody's seeing us kind of think out loud here for the first part. So you and I have talked about this before. I'm kind of like centered right. You're kind of centered left. I'm curious kind of as to your take of his statement and what he said.
Well, there's
1,000 different ways to go off of this.
Right. In my 49 years, this is what I've learned. Whenever there's a politician at a microphone who's speaking, all he's trying to do is get reelected. And that is a little bit too simple and too cynical, but there's a lot to that. There are very, very few politicians who will stand up and say what they really believe if they think it goes against their base and hurts their longevity and whatever. And right now, if you want to be president of the country, or if you want to be a candidate to go up against it, they found like nicety, especially on either side, but especially on that side, niceties and playing nice with the opponent is not it. So your strategy is to come out and verbally barrage the other side. I think that DeSantis makes some good points.
But see, the funny thing is, like, when you say, like you said, verbal what did you just say?
Barrage.
Barrage. Like, I didn't feel like this was like a barrage. Like, I felt like it kind of was very well put together.
Well, he spoke well.
Yes.
And he made some very good points. On the flip side of it, and this was back at the host, Florida's hospitalization rate now, according to the host that I saw, whichever one I saw, is higher than it's ever been during COVID. So this is like, as he's sitting here talking about, what's mandated and when do we become what is mandated and when do we lose all our freedoms? But then on the flip side, they're like, it's worse now than it was last year. Like, Florida's going the wrong way and going the wrong way fast. And you sit here and talk about personal freedom, and we're talking about a public health crisis. And that's why it's a fascinating conversation. When you listen to what DeSantis says, he speaks well. He doesn't speak. He's not inflammatory. He sounds intelligent, and he makes some very good points. On the flip side, because what infuriated him was, I don't know if you know this, Biden called out the governors because Texas is not doing well right now. Florida's not doing well right now, COVID-wise. They both have Republican governors, and Biden said, if you're a governor and you're not helping, then kind of get out of the way. And then they came flying back with about individual rights, and then the other people came back with the statistics and like, we get your individual rights, but things are going haywire. So, and that's, who's right?
As I was listening to DeSantis, the first thing that came through my head was, this is it's the most reasonable Trump statement that I had heard. And so like my whole thing is like, it's hard to argue numbers. Like, it's hard to argue statistics. Like, you and I love to talk about numbers and data and like where it comes from and what does it mean. But like, the one thing that I will say is, like, you and I have been talking about, people are not going. That's why I told you, I'm in a weird way, I am excited for the next couple of months to just see what happens, like where we go as a culture and as a society, because these are the things that are going to start to happen. I thought the one point that you and I made was like, people are going to start throwing up their hands. People are going to say, like, freedom of choice. We did this last year. We're right back in it. Like, we're not shutting down small business. We're not closing down communities. We're not doing this stuff regardless of what the numbers say. They're just to the point where they're fed up with it. And so I thought DeSantis coming out and saying and speaking the way he did, I was kind of like, that was the most reasonable argument I've heard from that side. That made, like you said, he's the way he said it, I was kind of sitting there going, wow, like, this is actually like this kind of makes sense. Like, some of the stuff that he said was very clear to me. Now, there are people coming out and saying, like, Florida doesn't have a southern border. Like, why is he talking about immigrants coming across the border, things like that? But I think the point that he is making is to blame it or to pin it on a state or two or three states. Like, I don't know. Like, I know I'm rambling and I'm not really sure. I think the reason I'm rambling is, as I was listening to DeSantis, I was like, wow, like, I am officially like kind of on the fence with this. Like, because go ahead.
I was just going to say, as you talked about the upcoming few months, I know Emma reported today, I think this went out on our site about an hour ago, that Bucknell is requiring masks again.
Yes.
I'd heard, and I don't know if this is true, that Wegmans is now requiring masks again.
Yes.
So,
to double back on Bucknell too, they're already required to be vaccinated. Correct me if I'm
correct.
Not wrong. So again, like we talked about, like, I just think people are fed up with the middle. Like, I do. I think there's a lot of people that, if you're a student at Bucknell, and granted, like, a lot of them probably aren't necessarily listening to DeSantis, but if you're a student at Bucknell, like, you're kind of trapped in the middle. Because if you're vaccinated and now you're putting on a mask, and it's like, well, what am I doing? Like, nobody else has, like, there are people that are unvaccinated or people that aren't wearing masks, but yet I had to do both. And so it's just, I don't know. Well, like, I just feel like we're stuck in the middle.
When I was thinking, and a place like Bucknell is different because it's about the college kids, and obviously, that doesn't affect you and I and the vast majority of people watching.
Sure.
But when you take a place like a Wegmans, and so if Wegmans demands it, then the the extreme lefts who love this or the extreme health conscious, whether you're right or left, are going to flock to Wegmans. The protesters, the antis, even they love Wegmans, they're going to go other places and to the other chains and likewise markets or the other ones around. And then does that what does it do to because if you're an employee now at one of these other places and you're like, so all the people that are coming here are all the anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers, does that make life more dangerous for me than it does for the employees at Wegmans? And this is where the roundabout trickle down comes. Do we have two different parts of business and society, the ones that require masks and the maskers go to, and the ones that don't require masks and the non-maskers go to, and neither the twain shall meet? Or is it just the extremes on one and extremes on the other? And most people are like, oh, if I have to wear a mask. I went to a meeting the other day with an advertiser here from North Central, and it was the first time in months. They're like, do you have a mask? And I said, no. And they had a box on their counter, and I had to wear a mask during the meeting. And I think the vast majority, there's like 80% of the people in the middle will wear them when it's required, will wear them when they think it's appropriate, and will not wear them at other times. And I think you have 10% that will wear them in the shower and in the car and everywhere else. And then you have 10% that wouldn't wear a mask, if they were robbing a bank.
Sure. No, I'm with you. The DeSantis statement was the first time that I wondered, I haven't thought a lot about Trump, not since the election ended. I kind of wake up and as I'm shifting through the news and stuff like that, he just hasn't crossed my mind. I've been more focused on other candidates in the Republican Party and kind of what we're doing. But this was the first time as he was speaking, I do wonder if Trump feels a little bit of panic, because there are people today that they will argue DeSantis just put himself in the ring. That he has a legitimate chance to kind of lead the party, represent the party. And if you're Trump, and a lot of people, I've had people walk up to me this morning and they're like, DeSantis is a reasonable Trump. It's great. It's fantastic. Did you hear him yesterday? And so I do wonder, what does that mean for Trump and what does that look like moving forward?
And it's a valid question. Now, my thought, Trump or no Trump, regardless of who he's against, it is a long time, because it's only 2021. It is a long time to stay that hot. And I know you've got to get high enough into the ring that, there's only going to be a handful of candidates that have any sort that move the meter. And DeSantis has probably got himself into that conversation. But yeah, it's a long time to. But you're right. He has, for lack of a better term, he has thrown his hat in the ring. But there's lots of people who throw their hat in the ring that can't move the meter. And DeSantis seems like he moved it today.
He did.
Or yesterday. Did he say it yesterday?
Yes. I believe he said it yesterday.
Okay.
But even we've just never, even when people have thrown their hats in early and they've made statements and all that stuff, it's never been there's never been this shark in the waters that you're kind of I could see Trump a year from now kind of being DeSantis might stop us from running in 2024. We need we can't have DeSantis take a lead. And so it's this weird thing where you want the support of your party and you obviously want the Trump vote, but you almost don't want to encroach too much on it. It's almost dangerous. It's almost, if you're trying to get to that level, you almost don't want to lurk too close to him because he will take you out if he needs to. So the whole DeSantis Trump thing moving forward, I'm really interested to see how that plays out, because it's almost like DeSantis can't get too much ahead in his own party.
Not to totally, say squirrel
no, go ahead.
On the other side, but you mentioned shark in the water. Did you see the girl from Luzerne County that they think got bit at Ocean City, Maryland?
I did not see that.
Yeah, we had the story yesterday. She said she was in shallow water. She felt something kind of smash into her legs. And So I think she's 12. So she just went running out of the water because it was shallow water and she didn't know what it was. And she got out and her leg was all bloody and there were a bunch of cuts. So 42 stitches she got. So it was obviously not, something simple. And they assume it was a shark bite. So what I was doing research, there has not been and you think of, Ocean City, Maryland, and all the people that just flock to there and all the place. There has not been a recorded fatal shark attack in Ocean City, Maryland in over 100 years.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's surprising only because though, like when there is one, you hear all about it. And maybe that's why. Maybe maybe you hear about them when they do happen to the point where like you never miss one.
I get it, but you would just think somewhere along the way.
Oh, I'm with you.
And again, oh no, wait, they said unprovoked. Sorry, because there are aspects where if you're out in a fishing boat and you're trying and the fishing boats, there. So I think there may have been some, but like just innocent surfers, swimmers, here's a shark, you're gone. It was like 1908 was the last one that they reported, which was just shocking to me.
Yeah, no, especially in Ocean City, Maryland's it's just always so packed. Yeah, that's really, really surprising. I'm telling you, they're around more than like the drone footage and all the like camera stuff like that. Like for hundreds of years, people have been swimming with sharks and had no idea, no clue.
Well, one of the things that I saw, and I don't know where I would have seen this other than Shark Week, so I will give Shark Week the credit. But they're like, just imagine if you're a shark and it's like a dog. If you're curious about something, because they talk about the people who like get bit but survive. And they're like, oh, why did they? Because if you're a dog and you just like, you put it in your mouth or dogs sniff. But like there's nothing else you can do. You can't like pick it up and be like, let's look at this. Yeah. So if a shark wonders like, what is this? They just kind of grab a hold of it and because, you're right. What the drone footage has shown the world, if sharks had a bigger appetite than they do, there would be lots of people disappearing.
Anybody who thinks they're getting in the ocean and there's not, if you have been in the ocean, there's a very good chance you have been near a shark. It just is. The drone footage is showing that. It's no doubt.
Which is one of the other reasons why I don't really love the ocean.
I love the ocean. I still get it. It doesn't bother me at all. I do. I like the beach. I like the ocean.
Because that sharks don't like to eat people with Lyme's disease. So you are kind of safe.
Is that what it is? Have you seen the spread? I mean, that's another one too, the spread of ticks. Have you like read about that or looked into that either? It is insane. So I didn't know this. I think it's the late 90s. Ticks were literally like a very small portion of like northeastern, not even like Pennsylvania. It was like northeastern, like upstate New York, I think, like somewhere up there. And it was just like a very condensed, like small. And it is now all the way up and down like the East Coast and like out towards like across like towards Ohio and like Virginia.
Do they have a theory?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a theory. They just know the spread. You can get on and you can see like the maps. They do like every 5 years, they show you like the spread of it is. It's nuts. And now in upstate New York, I don't know if you saw this one. This came out like a year or two ago. There's a specific one that if you get bit, you're allergic to red meat. So there's like all these in like upstate New York and like different places. Like there's like these kids.
The vegetarian thing.
It's crazy. It's absolutely insane that something that small and that tiny can like cause like so much havoc. It's insane.
You know how many, possums are like the best natural defense.
They are. Yes, they are. Possums. I think it was possums, snakes, and there was one other one that like they eat ticks constantly.
Possums eat like billions, and that's an exaggeration, but they eat a lot of ticks.
Yeah, we need more possums. That's what it comes down to. They're almost, and it's to the point now, like it's so hard to keep track of them. Like over the summertime, like we had little kids up at the farm and stuff, and it's like you're constantly checking them, and it's like you gotta like you gotta strip them down and look all over, and like you gotta go through their hair with a comb, and it's almost like I don't want to say it's unbearable, but it is a task. Like it is a consistent, constant chore throughout your day if you're like out and about in the woods.
since you're a farm kid and I'm not, here's my stupid question. Kid. So after you've been out and about, like you jump in the water, you jump in a swimming pool, does that work or does that not get rid of the ticks?
It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but if they've latched on, like the water's not going to do it. Like you've got to find them and you've got to remove them. You can actually get these at like local stores and different places. I have a tick key. And so what it is it almost looks like a guitar pick, but it has like a, you know how like on a map, the pinpoint, it's like a circle with a point at the end. So that's like the shape of it. And so you put that hole through the tick. And what it does is when you slide it over the tick, it helps pop it out. So you get all of it. Because if you just if you take tweezers or you take you try to grab it, you'll leave the head and everything else inside of you. And that's bad news. Like you don't want to do that.
You know, this sounds like a clickbait life hack thing that I read somewhere too. If you have one that's embedded, if you put Vaseline around it, have you ever heard anything like that?
Well, I've heard about putting a lot of different things. I've heard about like putting vinegar around it. I've heard of putting Vaseline around it. The one that I know for a fact, like outside of my tick key, the one that I know for a fact works is if you can heat them up. So like, obviously you can't always put a lighter up because depending on how big they are and how close they are to you, but if you can put a lighter up to it, they'll release. So the other trick to do is like, if you can boil a spoon, if you can make if you can heat something up in boiling water and then take it out and literally put it onto the tick over, like after a little bit, the tick will release and like eject itself out from the heat. That is like the best logical one that I've ever heard of to do.
Without burning yourself in the process.
Without burning yourself in the process. You literally you would take like almost, you could use a safety pin. You could use any type of metal. You put it in boiling water, put it up to the tick, they'll release and you're good to go.
Huh. I didn't know. And now that I'm thinking, I'm going to Google because there was something about the Vaseline it wasn't like it made it easier to pull out, but it was something that the tick would release.
I've heard the vinegar one I've never tried, but I've heard that if you can pour vinegar on it, like if you can get enough on, like it'll eject itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that because if somebody poured enough vinegar on me, I would let go. Like that's not a fight there's nothing worth that.
You would release. Yeah. So it is crazy. And as someone who has been through it, like it is not a joke. Like it is very, very, I am one of the, for people who have Lyme disease, I am incredibly, incredibly fortunate. My symptoms are almost non-existent. And I am very, very lucky.
And you were bad, like you were brutally bad.
I was at one point, I was stage 2 meningitis. My jaw was starting to lock up. I was in and out for about 3 days of like consciousness. It was pretty bad. And then after like once I was starting to recover, I had epilepsy in the left side of my face. And then my knees were swollen.
No, that's not what you had. It's called Bell's palsy.
Palsy. Sorry. What did I say?
Epilepsy.
Sorry. I had palsy on the left side of my face. My knees were swollen. And they tell you, like they come in with a sheet and they give it to you and they have you check off like your symptoms. And it's like it's like 40, 50 things that like, and they don't know the rhyme or reason as to who gets what symptom and everything else. So they give you the sheet and you kind of check off like what you have. And they tell you like it could last 2 days, it could last 2 weeks, it could last 2 months, it could last 2 years, it could last your whole life. There is no rhyme or reason as to why this stuff happens or pops up. So the first time I went to get up to brush my teeth, I go to brush it and all of a sudden like the toothpaste starts running down the left side of my face. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And I look in the mirror, my eyes a little droopy, my mouth is a little droopy, and like my muscles just not working in the left side of my face. And they say like, yeah, like, you know, give it time, like keep trying to work. I couldn't use a straw, like very subtle things that you begin to notice. And then I was like released from the hospital. 2 weeks later, I woke up one morning, I went to brush my teeth and I was like, fine. And so like, I am one of the very, very fortunate ones. Like my symptoms resided very quickly.
And you weren't a little kid when this happened.
No, this was 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So I am very, very, very fortunate. And even like my long-term symptoms are I never had headaches until about 5 years ago. Now, like once a month, I'll get like a really like bad headache. I'll notice like in the summertime, like I'll get very stiff, like in my shoulders, very different subtle things since I've had my Lyme's disease. But I am like not complaining at all.
No,
like,
when you I've learned through Facebook some people who've had Lyme's disease just because they'll post something or they'll mention it.
Yeah.
And yeah, for you, like it sucks. And
I am one of
it sucks because of the linger. Like as you said, it could last for years. It could last, and I know people just through Facebook who've been suffering now for a long time. Yeah, it's almost like they're in recovery for the rest of their life.
That is how it's been explained to me. I have somebody that I taught with. He has Lyme's disease, and every morning he said it is like he goes, I am just so sore. It's like, you know how when you're at a football game and you're shivering the whole time, and like the next morning you wake up and it's like you can't get your shoulders to drop because you were just like this, like he goes, every morning. He goes, every muscle in my body, every morning, it is like, it's almost like they're contracted and I can't get them. So I am, no complaints for me. I am very, very lucky.
You know what would help you at a football game? Extra sweatshirt.
A jacket or something.
An extra, just one more.
You know, the problem is it's when the sun goes down. The Friday night games are what kills you.
No, the aspect. This is the whole, from a guy who's been to 100 games and, baseball playoff games, you need to have one more. You need to have that one sitting in your lap or sitting next to you that you don't have on. So psychologically, no matter, I'm fine because I got more. It's when you have on everything you have and you get that one chill, and then you think, what do I do now? Oh, my only option now is to cuddle with the dude next to me because there's nowhere else to go. So you have to have an extra one. That's the key.
Okay. That's good. That's like psychology 101. That was good. It's good.
All right. It's like having a drink during the show. See, I haven't touched it in a long time, but I got it just in case.
I brought mine just in case. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and thank you to NorthcentralPa.com. Be sure to go there for all your local news.
That's it. That's all I got.
That's all you got for us?
I got nothing left.
You went with the Shawshank poster, which I was very happy with.
And I went with my maroon. And what's funny, I was going to mention this. Which side am I on here? This is my Susquehanna maroon. And what's interesting is, like, the Loyal Sock maroon is so ugly, but the Susquehanna maroon is so pretty. And from a distance, you would think they look similar, but you can tell there's just a slight little bit of difference.
Subtle difference. I might test you. I might get like a couple of and like, which one's which, and just see.
I could tell. The Coke Pepsi challenge, I could tell. What was the Bald Eagles? What were you guys?
We were maroon. Brockhaven's maroon.
Maroon and just
maroon and white. There's a little bit of gray. Like if you go through like some of our stuff, gray is kind of like the accent, but it's for the most part it's maroon and white.
Because Loyal Sock has kind of the robin's egg blue that goes along with it.
The powder, like the Loyal Sock powder blue is taking over.
It's good. Because the Susquehanna were orange and maroon, which maroon and orange, whichever. But the orange is kind of an odd combination. I could see gray. I don't think the alumni are thrilled about the blue, but like from just an aesthetic standpoint, the powder blue with the maroon is really good. Well, and this goes back to before your time. Back in the Phillies heyday, like of the late 70s, the Mike Schmidt Phillies. Yeah. The robin's egg blue and they're not a maroon. What color would you say the Phillies? It's a deep, like a burgundy-ish. Like it's a deep maroon. Yeah. And so it's not maroon, but it's close. But those Phillies uniforms were beloved. Oh yeah. That's what our stuff looks like when we start adding in like the powder blue. When I first saw the football uniforms that were blue with maroon trim, I thought these are the old Phillies uniforms. Yeah. I've always said here that's a hit. Like if you go to Iowa, they probably don't care. But here, that's a good combination. Yeah. I always thought if you're going to have maroon, you need like a hard accent. Whether it's the powder blue, Susquehanna has the orange, like Newman has the yellow. Like if you're going maroon, you got to have like a very like potent accent color. It's got to like pop it out. I like gray. I like the maroon and gray.
And
I've never seen your uniforms. That's why I asked. I didn't even know what colors you were.
Yeah, we're maroon and white. Gray's kind of, they'll use the gray as an accent in like the logos and stuff like that at Lock Haven. But I always thought Lock Haven could have used like a real accent, like a real accent. Even if you go dark or black, like you just need something to make it stand.
See, it's funny. Lock Haven told me they could have used a real shooting guard.
That's it. Good thing I was the point guard. So
whatever. I'll tell the jokes around here. Thank you very much.
All right. You guys go enjoy your day. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. Thanks for watching the Midday Show.
Have a